In reality, only a select few individuals hold the power of influence. Not a pout over a luxury item never to be owned, but real influence over police, governments, and even clandestine fraternities. My true story is so controversial that I invite you to comment and even question my integrity. Episode 5. The General. There were only 2 flats on the ground floor of my mum's estate, so I had a 50-50 chance that my mum would have survived the blaze, and it wouldn't have been any surprise with everything else that was going on if my mum was unfortunately found in her flat, burnt. In some respects, I suppose she'd have wanted that with everything else she was going through. I met up with my father, and as we arrived, we could see where the smoke had bellowed through the windows, and as we tried to bend our necks around the windows as we entered the car park, we could see that it was the next door flat and not my mum's that had been caught up in the blaze, and unfortunately, the man living next door was found dead. How can you be elated at your mum's life continuing at the same time you're watching her go through so much turmoil, and then how do you consolidate all of that with a man burned to death in his flat next door? The shock of it, the fear was enough, and my mum could barely take any more. The thing that happened from that was that my mother and father galvanised their pact and returned together to continue to drive the moral support for my brothers, the visits to HMP Swellside, which is where Bert was planning to be moved, whilst he stayed at HMP Chelmsford. Paul was taken to Runwell Mental Hospital in Wickford in Essex, not a million miles away from the Rettendon murders from the other Essex boys, although in this case my brothers were innocent. Remember, Bert at this time was only 21 years old, coming up to his 22nd birthday. He'd been given 14 years minimum recommended sentence, so that's 14 years to serve before parole, if he would get it on that exact date. Sometimes, and I suppose more often than not actually, in reality. Serving prisoners, certainly lifers, which is now his new monocle, an L plate, as they call it in jail. Not because it's a learner, but because it's the most respected of all of the levels, if you like, of prison and convicted prisoners. Bert, 22, an L plate, a lifer, starting his journey that would see him, if serving his full sentence, leave after losing all of his 20s and half of his 30s. Imagine, if you're old enough, what did you do through your 20s? The fun, the parties, the relationships, the holidays, the experiences. What if you were in a position where all of those were removed, erased? And not only that, but in its place, torture, turmoil, suffocation in a small room, wallowing whilst you know that the person that really convicted the murder and put you where you are is walking around a free man, and his family laughing away with their friends in blue. Yet another situation that these people cause. And I mentioned it before, and I'll continue to mention it later on as we continue to uncover all of the intricacies and injustices in this case. Now, Bert decided that he would go and spend most of his time in the gym. He decided that to work out every day would take a lot of his time. Getting fit, being strong in jail is a commanding position, let alone with an L-plate badge of honour. Paul, on the other hand, was fighting a different battle. The pressure placed on him by his solicitor, Paul Harris. A solicitor, by the way, that strangely was able to manage 2 co-defendants in the same murder case. Now that, as we understand it, is very unusual. Some say not on. Solicitors usually represent sole clients, but in this case, Paul Harris decided to advise us that he was able to manage and represent both brothers, both co-defendants, when it may be said each of my brothers should have had their own separate solicitor. All of that will come out as we go through. Now, the visits to HMP Swellside were no different, really, to those at Chelmsford. The regime's the same. Searches, removal of all goods, other than some money. In this instance, they had a canteen, an internal canteen in the visiting hall where you could buy things, burgers, hot food, tea, coffee, rather than a machine with Coke and chocolate biscuits and whatever it was, sweets. So that was better in some respects because we were able to buy Bert, things that he perhaps couldn't have on the usual prison. Paul, on the other hand, while suffering by being dosed up with all sorts of medication, he was unable to resist because the threat was that they would give him the liquid cosh, as they kindly put it. And what that means is a number of mental health screws would jump on their victims and give them a jab of the liquid cosh, an injection, which completely freezes and immobilises the person to the degree where they are messing themselves, pissing, shitting themselves, dribbling for hours, sometimes days. Bert sometimes said that people in with him wanted to get into the mental health system and they saw it as something of a holiday. We saw both sides to a degree, and I can tell you that prison life looked much easier than being in a psychological hospital because the mental torture that these doctors can apply and the nurses or screws can inflict on someone is immeasurable. Nevertheless, Paul made what he could of it, and that doesn't lighten any of the fact that he was suffering, as was Bert. But with Paul, all he had was smoking, drugs, and sometime later on, a considerable lot of time later on, some localised walking around the grounds, albeit with a nurse or two or three alongside, because the police had really bumped this case up. They wanted it to stick. They wanted to protect their friends, the so-called gangsters of Essex. And they wanted to ensure that all of their little club was locked in and protected so that they could effectively get away with it. And this wasn't the only case they got away with. I've touched on the Essex Boys case, and we will deal with that later, but there are many cases that I deal with. Many serious cases. Jeremy Bamber, another case. The Rettendon case is another. There are many, not too many, but a few that I'll touch on and give evidence of my experiences with them. Now, when you look at the prison life, you have to have a sense of humour. A sense of humour is ingrained in all of us, isn't it? But, somewhere once you get used to it, I mentioned the pigs and shit remark before, and that's how you find yourself coping or wallowing in the situation that you are in. And that's no different. Even though that these places, prison and mental health, they're very serious places. For Paul, his friends, if that's what you call them, multiple murderers, very serious crimes. But again, multiple murders, major drugs, major fraud. This was HMP Swell size, not your average jail, minimum 6-year sentence, standard. That that's the threshold, basic. And then long-termers, serious drugs, serious fraud, murder, multiple murder, etc. But out of all that, when you're in, I'm told, you're all the same in some respects. Bert told us a great story when we were on a visit at Swellside. And I won't go into too much detail, you'll understand and appreciate why, but one of his friends in there had a job. Most people had a job. And his was to move the bins, the rubbish bins, around in the yard, albeit accompanied by a screw. Now, somebody think that that's not a very good job, but, you think about it long and hard enough, you may realise that it's not such a bad job if you were part of a group that were bringing in or out contraband into the jail system. Now, I'm not saying that his friend was doing that, but that's how it's revered. That kind of job, that's how that's seen. And, if people are bringing things, it doesn't mean that it's the con who's bringing something in, the inmate. It might be the screw. And 9 times out of 10, it is the screw. How do you think things get into jails? You talk about, pigeons being thrown over, stuff with whatever. Yeah, that sometimes happens, I'm sure. But come on, these screws, do you honestly think that they're not bringing stuff in? Really? Anyway, in this particular story, Bert was telling us that it wasn't drugs or contraband, it was something else completely. And it was thrown into Bert's cell. Now, it was a joke between Bert's friend and the screw. They pulled it out of a bin and threw it into Bert's cell. Now, Bert turned around, saw it and thought, fucking, is this playing a game with me? And left it there. One of the other screws saw it and raised the alarm. As the story goes, the prison governor came along and the mufti crew, as they call it, team of prison officers equipped and trained in the use of minimum force, so they say, to retain control of prison service establishments. That's the technical phrase, mufti, M-U-F-T-I, mufti team. And they have batons and shields and all the rest of it, and they run in and jump on people and bash them up. And well, in this particular instance, the mufti crew came, and they didn't want to bash up Bert. Well, they'd love to, I'm sure, but they wouldn't have lasted very long for it. Bert had become very strong and respected, and it wouldn't have been the day or another day. Once you turn a respected person in the legal system, you have the whole jail to deal with. So they were managing the situation. But the threat, they arrived and they were standing outside the door, and along came, as the story goes, the governor. And he stood in the opening, and one of the screw, it seems, that threw this thing into Bert's cell, was standing with his back against the wall in the cell, terrified. So the governor said, "Right, Bert, we're going to double ACAT you and send you to Whitemore, because we believe that that's an attempted prison escape. And we're going to E-man you." And what that means is they're going to put him in stripes, coloured boiler suits, so that they can be seen wandering around and easily recognised. So Bert turned around and said, "Look, I don't know what you're talking about. Someone walked past and threw something in my cell." He said, "Who was it? Tell me who it was." He said, "I think it might have been a screw." The fucking screw's sitting there, standing there, sorry, shaking like a fucking leaf, terrified. The governor looked pale, couldn't believe the response. "What do you mean? A screw threw something in your cell, contraband, something that would disguise you?" And Bert turned around and said, "Look, I'm not in here serving 14 years for a life sentence of murder. I'm serving a life sentence for not being a grass." "What? You won't even tell me the name of a prison officer to save yourself?" P.O. said. "Look," Bert replied, "not being a grass means not grassing anyone, not even a screw." There it is, 22, in a serious place, about to be double ACAT'd off to Whitemore. E-man, screw, fucking no one. Wouldn't even grass him. Bert went on and said, "Look, if you want to send me off to Whitemore, I've got some friends over there," he said, "and they've got a better gym than here." I said, "I fucking love it. I'm in it for a long time. I can't look out the windows and fucking play on the grass." He said, "I'm just in the gym." It's a small world, the prison service, and as you walk in, as I hear it, people already know who you are or what you're about. And the jail population gave an added respect to Bert, which effectively was our family name, albeit within the prison walls, but even far beyond. The conversation took a little pause as, I'm looking at a little brother and my parents had a baby son who had carved his name not only into the sides of the boats that we restored or the timber luxury apartments and other things that we did for our clients, but into the real world. The funny thing is that as he finished and the pause is sitting in the air, Bert turned around and said, "You wouldn't get me another cheeseburger, would you?" The other one was lovely. And it's just like, he took it completely in his stride and didn't even give a fuck. He finished his burger and, I told him about Top Flight and that we were going to, visit Paul afterwards. It was then that Bert told me about a letter that Wicks had sent to him whilst he was in Chelmsford. It turned out that Wicks was convicted of another crime that he'd been charged with and bailed during the murder case. How did he get bail if he was on bail for a serious offence, criminal offence, at the same time? ... You work that one out. Have a think back to the genealogy I mentioned earlier, if that's what it is. We'll get to it. "Look," Bert said, "I've got a handwritten letter from Craig who mentions the car accident and that he was the one that carried out the attack with the bar stool. And this was alleged against me, and the car accident ran me over and the deceased before the barmaid dragged him onto the pavement supposedly to give him mouth-to-mouth, which she actually didn't, although she was taken by Commander David Bright to get an award for her heroics. She didn't do anything heroic. What she did was to put Bert in it and Paul as a police grass. Stacey Westfield, that's her name. Look, we're gobsmacked, we're sitting there, we're all looking, obviously scratching for evidence and something to put together for an appeal, and Bert just pulled this one out on us. He said, "Look, I couldn't tell you." He said, "Because obviously all the phones are tapped." He said, "They're listening in to all the conversations." He said, "But I've called Paul Harris and he's going to come down and take a statement from another inmate who confirms that the letter was sent from Wicks." Well, look, you'll remember that Wicks had been released from the trial early by the direction of the judge, even though Carter Stevenson claimed to have a statement implicating Wicks to the murder, but was unable to use it. Remember, Carter Stevenson's memory, conveniently, is absent, as with all the others, even though there are notes from the trial that the fact happened. Maybe going a little fast for you. You can't grass a grass. That's the rule of the world, or the world that we're in. And that means that you can mention anything about grass without it being deemed as grassing, if that is against a grass. There's no grass in a grass. You can say what you like about them. But continued, I've wrapped the letter up, packaged it in a way that they can't look in. And if they did, they'd only deface my signature across the seal on a box I'm about to send out to you. It's in reception, so go and get it on the way out. I've told the screws it's an important legal document which can only be taken by a solicitor or my family, you. On to the solicitor. And this was the only time I really wanted to leave a prison visit early. I couldn't wait. And as we were leaving, I was stopped by a good-looking, short, fit female screw. I don't know if all those things go together, but it did. She had shoulder length, dark hair, and she appeared to be a bit flirty. Nice try, I thought, and reminisced of the female cop as Jane in Portugal. Hello, I'm Alison. I've heard about the Eddie story with the colleague of mine, and, she's nudge, nudge, wink, wink, give me a little twitch. If you need anything, just let me know. Now, I had no idea at that time if Bert had asked her to reach out. I couldn't go back into the visiting hall because I was on my way out. I'd gone back through the system in this jail. So I had to wait to speak with him next time, and then I couldn't speak to him because all the calls were recorded. I was in a difficult position, so I just had to weigh it up as it was. Now, if it was due to Bert's staunch behaviour of not grasping a colleague, and that was the reason she was reaching out, or was it she was just being friendly, or more than friendly? It appeared that she was a mixture of all three, and I couldn't ignore her leaning out for help, even though I obviously didn't trust one bit. I collected the package from reception and opened it up in the back of the car as we was all keen to know what was inside. As Bert said, there were 2 handwritten letters from Craig Wicks. I'll read them to you. To Bert. It's Craig here. Well, what can I say? I don't know about what people said today about you being run over, because as I said, I left the pub after what happened inside. I can tell you everything that happened inside the pub if it helps you. So let me know in your next letter and give it to the red bands. I couldn't tell you why the people that were there didn't say about you being run over if they see it. I can only tell you what I know, what I did. And the only reason I did it is, like I said before, is because I was with you and I didn't know if he was going to start fighting us or not. So that's why I did it. Look, I've spoke with Reese today, and if it helps, I'll say about the bar stall when I get out. But you know the score, Bert. I wasn't bragging about what I did, and definitely didn't stitch you up, mate, because you have all the statements and they're all no comment. As I said, I'm gutted how things have turned out, so if you want, I'll sort it out as soon as I can. Right soon. Now, one of the things that the Blundells use in their release from conviction or prosecution is they all say we didn't give a statement. Well, not to the police direct or an open statement that can be used in court. But the allegations are that that's only a front to what they're doing behind the scenes. Now, to talk this talk, you got to back it. I'm not going to release that just yet. Let's continue so I can explain to you how I found out things. Couldn't believe it. I flicked over and there was another letter from Craig Wicks. To Bert, I got your letter. Nice one. I hope you're okay, man. I'm gutted how things turned out for you. But just take care, yeah? I paused there for a second. Just take care. I've just given you 14 years life sentence. Lovely, innit? You know, as well as I do, there were loads of people that grassed us up, don't you? I'm not happy with those few people. Well, I've got 6 moons to do, but here's my number. So write any time you want to chat. I heard you got a job. If you can sort me out some tracksuit bottoms, sweet, mate. Take care, I'll speak to you soon. Come on, look, do I need to spell it out? You know, this idiot's fucking murdered someone, according to his own words and other statements. Got away, got out of trial. All his family were intimidating witnesses. Sort me out some tracksuit bottoms. Sweet, mate. Have a life sentence. Let's move on because I can't wait to get to the bit I was going to tell you about, which comes in a few episodes' time, but I'm going to tease you on it all the way through, along with some other crazy shit that you won't believe. Bert had received these handwritten letters from Wicks before contacting his solicitor, Paul Harris. Look, you know, let's say, I've got to think about hindsight here, let's say that Paul Harris, he's not behaving properly. And he went in and got a statement from a guy called Reese, who lives in Pitsea, in Basildon. And the letter basically says that whilst in being detained at the prison, he met a man named Bert and his brother Paul. He's aware of the charges that Bert faced and had been convicted of murder. Bert supposedly told me that he was innocent. I'm reading across his statement, actually, sworn statement. In the 27th of May, 1999, a few months after Bert and Brian were convicted. He goes on to say that Bert told him that Wicks was responsible for the attack and was now back in prison. And he goes on to say that he went up to Craig and put it on him. And in his sworn statement he said, "What did Bert do?" And Wicks said, "He did nothing because he got hit by a car." So Reese said to Craig, "Did you spike Bert's drink? Because Bert told me that it might have happened." And Craig said, "We only did it for a laugh." So here we go. Let's just rewind this one up again. Hopefully I'll do a better job of it than I did with the juror. Craig Wicks, playing Paul, Sibley, McGrath, McCleary run up the pub when they see Paul iron out or hit Gary Edwards to deceased once. Craig Wicks picked up a bar stool and said to have caught it on the light so he couldn't have come down very hard, but in his own admission, he smashed it over the deceased's head. And in witness statements as well. Happy to show anyone if you want them. One of the statements was from his friend who was there with him that night, Paul McCleary. Paul McCleary gave a statement later on in the unused about Craig Wicks using the bar stool. That was the only thing that Bert was convicted of. That is enough, isn't it? Craig Wicks murdered someone using a bar stool, or was it the car accident, or was it the barmaid moving? Yeah, I'll leave that with you for a minute. But now we've got evidence in a sworn statement from an inmate that was speaking with Wicks that Wicks was the one that spiked Bert. If he was his friend, the co-defendant, why didn't he say that? After he was off, why didn't he say, "Oh, I spiked him," and given him the defence he needed? Police knew it was happening. Swapped the blood samples, mislabelled the blood samples. What was in the blood samples for Paul was in the blood samples for Bert, and vice versa. I'll get to that too. Toxicology becomes something of an education, fortunately, as we go through. So look, we have these letters. We have a sworn statement from Reese confirming what Wicks did. And yet we need to move on. We need to now fight this legally. We need to fight this. Because look, if Blundells are, as maybe or may not be the case, friends of the police, don't worry about Blundells or the police. There's a fight on. Now, they've all clubbed together by the look of it, and they're going to continue to club together. You've got to think how you're going to deal with it. The solicitor's no good. The barrister's no good. Yes, what you're faced with. What do you do? Where do you point? Where do you go next? What do? Do you stand back and just gather some more and just get on with your lives, try and earn some money, put yourself in a better position, then go for it? Or, you've got these things to weigh up. On top of that, you've got to deal with matters of the day. 2 family members convicted of a serious crime. They need a lot of money to get by. They need things. Family needs things. Family are devastated. We're all trying. What I'm talking about, others are doing. I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you how it is so you can understand what we're going through. The thing was, I was able to earn a few quid, enough to just keep us going, just barely keep us going. As I say, Paul was then able to have a few slight perks, really upset the nurses or the screws. They're taking a Chinese or an Indian or 100 fags or whatever it was, you know what I mean? I then had my appointment interview with Peter Lloyd at Top Flight. I entered the building through the front door of Haven Green Lane in Ealing and then onto reception where I was asked to wait. Door to Mr. Lloyd's office opened and 2 builders came out, each holding £50 notes. I thought, wow, so I'm in the right place here. It's got a boss here who's, looking after people and giving people some money for doing what must be a good job. This is the place I want to be. Now, Peter Lloyd was a sales guy, well-spoken, and he thought of himself a bit of a James Bond character, but he didn't look nothing like him. "Please take a seat, Darren," pointed to the seat on the opposite side of the desk, and the formalities relaxed and friendly. "So, Darren, tell me more about you. I can see that if this role was an offer of a carpenter or even a loft team, then there'd be no hesitation. I would snap you up immediately because your credentials as a tradesman speak for themselves. But you're not here for that role, are you? You're here for the role of project manager. And for that, I'm unable to see any prior experience or training for the role. You got the industry knowledge, experience, skills, and I like you. I would then appreciate if you could help me by explaining an example of management or a management situation that you have adequately handled." Right, I thought, I've got some experiences, but I don't know how this guy's going to take them. I need to tell him how I've managed a sticky situation. There's plenty of them. How is he going to find it? I had nothing to lose. Right, I said, look, I'll tell you about a story in the Cali. I said, one day, I was cleaning it all up. A group of guys came in, about 8 or 9 guys, about to go to the football. Now, they thought they were going into the Cali of old. So they looked round and they realised immediately that things had changed. So instead of sniffing on the bar, they thought to go up to the back bar, and there's a men's toilet up there. It had 3 stand-up loos and 1 sit-down, and that's it. No places to put gear and have a sniff. He's listening away. He's thinking, what's he fucking talking about? I was talking about building management. You're talking about managing a strip club. But, he asked me a difficult situation. And I don't know why I thought of this one, but I did. So I went on. Well, I said, after a little while, the 5 of them, I think it was up there at the time, didn't come down. So I thought, they're obviously fucking sniffing. I better go and see them. So I went through the door. He was straight in, 3 loos in a line down the left-hand wall. And on the right hand was just 1. There's no one in there. So obviously the 5 of them are in the loo. So I pushed the door. I heard, I'll be out in a minute. All right, okay, here we go. Peter Lloyd, his fucking eyes popping out his head. I bet he thought, well, it reminded me I need to go out later. So I said, all right, I can hear you sniffing in there. Get out. We're not sniffing, Gav. We're not sniffing. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. You either come out now and leave, or I'm going to go back in the bar and tell a packed pub that I've got 5 puffs in the carsy. Fucking door swung off its fucking hinges, all run out, fucking rubbing their noses, fucking shuffling up each other's arses, not literally, but, tight up each other's backs, because they'd rather leave than be known as gay. Peter fucking loved it. He said, well, that's fucking brilliant. He said, well, good thinking, he said. I couldn't believe he thought of it like that. I've also couldn't believe I fucking told him that story, to be honest with you. But I did. I can't believe what I'm telling you, but I am. The reason being, he gave me the fucking job. He said, can you start Monday? I said, yeah. He said, I'll give you that old van out there. He said, it's one of the ones that the roofers were using. He said, it's sign written. He said, it's got a long ladder on the top. He said, you can have it. And that was it. Project manager at Top Flight. On the following Monday, I left home about 5 o'clock. I had an hour to drive to Ealing. Pulled into the car park outside, saw some of the other Top Flight vans, some of them newer. Didn't matter to me, I had a van for free. And the car park was right next to the basement entrance, and which is where all the project managers and the contractors would engage and work. I was introduced to the 3 other project managers, Ian Blake, named Blakey Boy, that's his nickname, Don Carlin, Don, the older guy, set in his ways, living in Ellaby Street in Fulham. He bought ex-council house, and it obviously value gone through the roof, literally, forgive the pun. And then Mark Price, who called Swerve. I called him Swerve because once I got to know him, he swerved everything. There was also the contracts manager, Alan Lewis, and sitting firmly at the heart of the administration was a woman called Laura Sansom, otherwise known as Big Laura, because she was tall. Next to her was her sidekick, Jalvinder, Indian English descendancy. Lovely people, honestly, nice fun. All greeted me warmly, a little banter from Blakey Boy, which was his way, perfect. Swerve, another little bit, which was great. And the girls seemed very helpful. As all the project managers left and Alan Lewis went off to negotiate some contracts, I sat there in my seat, first time in an office, proper office. I didn't have to fax anything, I didn't have to photocopy anything, I didn't have to do nothing other than work and run jobs. But this was specialising in loft conversions. I measured roofing, I wasn't a roofer. Measuring, tiles, slates, lead, all sorts of things. I was so hungry. I was away from home, much like the Cali. I was able to concentrate my time on focusing on work, which was great because I got stuck in. And the thing was, I wasn't earning a lot of money. I can't remember what the wage was, about 350 quid a week, but there were bonuses. And it was for that I was chasing it. The arrangement was that I would be on probation for the first month. I couldn't believe it. There's all 3 of us looking at probation. And then after that, and if I did well, and whatever well meant, I would be taken on full time. So as everyone left and I'm sitting there, you could see the girls giggling away. And I got up and I had to send a fax to one of the merchants, and I was standing by the fax machine messing about. And then Laura stood up, she said, I'll do that for you. I said, thanks. See, I was a bit green, not a bit, I was green in the office. So they were having a bit of fun. So one of them ran upstairs, I can't remember which one, I think it was Jalvinder, yeah, ran upstairs and came down with a bag. Right, Darren, as you're now working for the company, you have to wear the proper attire. Take off your shirt. We've got a shirt for you. Giggling away, nudging each other. All right, I said, so I thought, fuck it, I'm going to play up with them as well. So I said, well, you're going to have to come and take it off me. Which only turned up looking at each other going, oh, yes, I have a bit game on this. All right, let's go. So they're walking towards me, shuffling through these shirts. This one, what do you think? This one? I said, fuck it. They got about 2 meters away. I took off my shirt. So, oh, tattoo, eh? Yes, there's a tattoo on my back with a beehive and a bee on it surrounding it. I won't go into the story. You'll remember Bridget. B. She has one in the same position. It will no doubt come off soon. Now I've revealed that. I've tried to hide that for so many years, not literally, but the fact that it's attributed to B. That's going to obviously be lasered off at some point. Anyway, I put the shirt on. That was their game over for the moment. They had probably many more. They did have many more for me, no doubt. And that was it. So Swerve pulled back in. He said, come on, he said, I've got a site I want to set up. I thought, oh, thank God. So I probably do. I went to this site, scaffold was up, I walked up there. I felt like it was bending over. It wasn't tight to the wall. It wasn't anything, crane, heavy lifting gear. All now, this was stuff I could deal with. I called the scaffolders. They tied the thing up. I had the crane lifting the stuff that was restacked all the timber in the order it should have been used in, because there's not much room on a scaffolder for a loft conversion. You have to, take it off carefully rather than keep shifting it like a pack of cars around each other. And that's what I did. And it was easy. Swerve, hence the name, just swerved it all, leaving it for the teams to struggle on a price, and he just wasn't interested. None of them were really. Blake was half interested, but he was looking at other things. So was Don. But anyway, I cracked on and I learnt a lot. I learnt how to measure stairs, calculate stairs, which saved me time because I didn't have to wait for the stair company to come down and measure them. I could then just draw them, fax them off, and I'd get them quick in a week. That meant that the jobs I was looking after would complete quickly. The teams would earn more money, they liked me, etc., etc. Peter called me into the office. Darren, it'll be no surprise to you that I'd like to offer you a permanent role as project manager with my company. You've shown yourself to be hard-working with excellent timekeeping, often here from 6 in the morning until 7 and even 9 at night. And this will change as you manage your diary and the teams under your guidance. The rest of the team like you and say nice things about you. I hope that you will continue and prove to be a great asset to my business and develop your skills even further. I thanked him, went into the car park, phoned the family, and told them we'd soon be in the black again financially, spreading my earnings wide across the family. This gave everyone a great boost of confidence, and I noticed it straight away. The emotions were positive, and this spurred me on even more and more and more. I made visits to my brothers, I took them goodies, my parents' utilities were up and paid up, my rent was paid, but the travelling was getting a bit much and I was earning a bit more, and I dreamt of living. I say dreamt, I probably a daydream, thinking I could live in Ealing from Essex. But I did. So I went down to one of the local estate agencies in Ealing High Street and I bumped into a guy called Nigel and registered with his agency. He took me out to various viewings of obviously stuff he couldn't rent or sell. Osterley Mews in Isleworth and other properties in Stanmore and all the rest. I couldn't get close to Ealing because it's just too expensive. I'd completed 3 successful loft conversions and wanted more, and I met Peter at the Wheatsheaf pub in Haven Lane. And after a few beers, I asked him if there was any way of my earnings going up. Well, look, he said, if you can think of a way to raise them, I'll consider it. But with the blacklist as long as your building list, we are losing money on some of these projects, so things are tight. Now, the blacklist, as he put it, was a board of jobs that weren't complete. And it was as big as the jobs that were ongoing. These were little jobs. We called them snagging. But no one was interested. Look, I said, I'll deal with them in amongst what I'm doing. I can see the jobs, and I know they're a pain in the arse, and I knew that what I was getting into, I was overcoming someone else's work, not to do it myself, but to arrange whatever the issue was, whether it was roofing or plastering or whatever it was, carpentry, didn't matter what it was. I've got all the assets, I've got the team, so I just go around, measure the materials, make it a date, get it done, get paid, the final payment, usually around $3,000. There were lots of them, there's over 40 of them. So we had a lot of money outstanding. And some of these clients were getting upset and even threatening litigation. Even though his brother was a lawyer, no one needs to be in court. We'd had enough of that. So I said, look, is there anything you can do? He said, well, look, he used to jog every morning and then come into work about 1 o'clock and stay till about 8 at night and go over to the pub. Look, he said, you really want to do something? I said, yes. I've made it clear I want to earn some money. I want more money. I'll do more for it. I said, give me 2 teams and full access to your subcontractors and I'll go and finish all your blacklist. He said, well, look, I'll tell you what, if you do that, I will have a serious conversation with you about upping your money. So I did. I cleaned it, cleaned the backboard, did my own work, stayed late, done it. It was empty. I remember looking at it thinking, wow, I can't believe I've done it myself. Got rid of it. And then I'd called on a meeting. Nigel would call me and we'd go out for beers and in the Strand on the Green where he lived, or in Chiswick, which is lovely. I mean, different worlds where I'd lived. And we'd go to meet his family and, on the river in Hammersmith and have general real good times. It was, just a life away of Essex, which I love. Essex is good people and all that, but, this was just a different thing for me. Don would take me out some days. He'd take me through what he called Nappy Valley, between the commons in Wandsworth and Clapham Common, the parks of Richmond and Kingston, and I would dream about window shopping for a property. Over the next few months, things were good. I'd arranged for a bonus scheme approved by Peter's brother, the lawyer, which meant that new boards went up in the office, much to the upsetment of all the other project managers, who didn't really mind because they were all on their way to do other things anyway. It had 3 tiers. First tier was, you can earn your money. It's 25 grand a year, I think, at the time. And that's it. You close 4 jobs guaranteed a month. The next one is a mixture of your basic plus closing up to 6 jobs a month. And then the one he called the go-getter. No basic. Full on closing jobs. And you get a higher rate if you close the most jobs a month. You get win bonuses for getting references, and teams get better reference and all that stuff. He even implemented a bonus where he give 50 quid extra per job if you got a reference from the client. So his sales team could put it in a file and take it around all the rest of it. Well, I was closing 9 jobs a month. I was killing it. And he called me in the office and said, Darren, he said, I've just had a bill from the off licence across the road. He said, 12 bottles of champagne. I said, yeah, more. He said, have you really been closing that many jobs? I opened my case, pulled out a wad of cheques, 3 grand, 2.5 grand, no less. Here you go, they're all the jobs closed this month. Good, he said, I'm going to come out and have some of that with you. Meet me tonight in the pub. We'd go out, we'd drink in tequila, champagne, he'd buy, I'd buy, whatever. And as time went on, I thought, I can do more of this. I can get down to, if I can only live here, I'd be laughing. I couldn't live in Ealing. So I thought I'd speak to Nigel and say, look, where can I get close? He said, well, look, Wandsworth up and coming. He said, why don't you come over there? I thought, I've been through Wandsworth. Yeah, it looks a bit all right. It's still Wandsworth. I remember it from the Club UK days. Right, partying over there. So I said, right, look, let's have a look. One weekend, I left home, drove up there, parked up right by the crossroads in Putney High Street at the junction of the Upper Richmond Road. Yeah, there's half a dozen estate agents there, and I just wandered past, and I was thinking, fucking, when I turn up here, what did he send me here for? Look at the price of these things. And then I sort of wandered past an estate agent called Alan Fuller at 149 Upper Richmond Road. He's still there. Looked in the window, saw this 1-bedroom flat off West Hill. Although I didn't know where it was then, but an SW18 Wandsworth postcode and what appeared to be a large balcony and all the advertising that went with it. I looked down at the number and thought I'd give them a call, although the price tag of 132.5 grand, something I felt far too much. Look, its perspective is a funny thing, right? And appreciation of money and amusement, whenever a little or none. I was looking or dreaming of what I thought was an expensive property. I was working on multi-million-pound residential homes. I mentioned this to my family, and they said, look, you sure you can afford it? Not because they were worried about me paying for everything else, not at all. They'd have given their shirts off their back for everyone. They would have not had a canteen, my brothers, and given me it. It's what we do for each other. But they were just a bit worried, a bit nervous. So I noticed that I couldn't afford that flat if staying with Top Flight. So I went to Peter, I said, look, Peter, I've quadrupled the size of your business. I said, how about I become a partner? And I now know that that's not the sort of thing that you want to hear as a director. So he said, no. I get it. So I thought, right, I'm going to have to leave. I'm going to have to go my own way. I'm now highly experienced, loft expert, hungry, I know how it can be done, how it can be earned and all the rest of it. So I found a very small loft conversion family firm in Wandsworth called Valley Joinery, based in Penwith Road, SW18. And after a conversation with the director, he knew that I could do it back to front. So I started a little job in Brocklebank Road in Wandsworth. I went back and spoke to my old workmate, my old man, and he just loved to work with his toys. Just couldn't get it out of him. It's just properly in the blood. So we went over and I saw him and got him with me, working alongside each other once more, having a laugh and a joke, working on these loft conversions. Well, one day, as we were working away, a woman came out from next door named Becky, and she said, would you do a loft for me? She said, I don't like this firm. She said, look at the state of the place out the front here. There was a skip at the front. There was one going on the other side. I was doing one side, and another team were doing one on the other side. She said, look at the contrast. She said, yours is clean and tidy. He said, this one is look, it's a dump. She said, we're going to have a loft. She said, I'm going to invite you to a barbecue the weekend. All my friends are going to be there. And I thought, fucking, I can't start to you. All right, thanks. Yeah, I'll have it. Thank you. With that came some great news that my mum was planning to find some alternative accommodation. I thought if I can move up here, if I can settle here, I can bring her up here, I can get her a flat. One of the things that you drive for is to better yourself and better your family. Not in that order, but to better the people that you want. You need to better yourself to get them there. Better, doesn't mean anything much than put yourself in a position where you can look after them. I received a call. Hi, is that Darren? I thought it was bad news about the flat. Taken off the market, sold or something. I mean, it was the only one anywhere remotely cheap enough. And even that was expensive for me. Yeah, it is. Is that Alan Fuller's office? Absolutely. I'm Michelle King, an independent financial advisor and a new addition to Alan Fuller. I was wondering if you would like to come in and go through the mortgage proposal. I'd been so busy with everything else going on, relaxed on the dream of owning 109 Ericsson Close, which is the rest of the property, that rather than doing something about it, I kept on working and saving. I can do some afternoons and possibly Saturday if that's convenient, I said. And that was my offer. Yeah, let's do Saturday then, 2 o'clock at Alan Fuller's office. It's in my diary already. See you then and have a wonderful week. And along with it came an unusual back foot at a posh accent from a female who was clearly driven and intriguing. We agreed to make the most of the trip, and then I arranged to meet with Errol, the accountant at Top Flight, to catch up and watch a match with the club he supported, a female football club in its infancy, named Chiswick United, who played in Hayes in Middlesex. I was thinking about the flat, Michelle, with that and a little confidence and a little swag of returning, a couple of quid in my pocket. I borrowed my dad's car. He'd bought a black Mercedes 500 SCL, not a new one, beautiful thing. So I took it. I needed all my wages to fill it up. So I went down to see Errol at the football match. And as I arrived, I found Errol, who was acting nervously. I said, "What's up, mate? Our opponent's at the top of the league, and this is the semi-final of the cup. We were hammered by them last time, and I'm a bit worried, mate." My knee-jerk reaction was to alleviate Errol of his nerves. How can I have a bit of fun with him and G him up a bit? So I said to him, "Look, I'll tell you what, where's our team?" "Oh, over there," he said, "just behind where you parked up. Look, you must have clocked them. They all saw you pull up in that motor." "Nice motor, mate. Little G, innit?" We both laughed out loud, which wasn't unnoticed by his team. "Look, I'll tell you what, why don't you tell the team that I'm a scout looking to recruit Arsenal ladies, as I hear they're the best women's team right now, aren't they?" Errol nodded, more to acknowledge Arsenal women as the leading football team at the moment. I went on. "Look, I'll tell you what, tell them that I will be on the touchline making notes on who is ready for Top Flight football. So tell them I'm from Top Flight." He laughed, and with a glint in his eye, he took my plan over to the team. I followed almost immediately behind him to pitch side, the women talking and double looking, some delight, some suspicion, and then the thought of successfully changing teams to Arsenal women's overcame any doubts, and the game began. The whistle went, and I stood next to Errol as he pranced up and down the sideline, calling out instruction. "Yeah, go fucking hell, down, mate," he blurted. "We're having a corker of a game, and we're all over him." The match ended 3-1 to Chiswick United, and although an assumed military lineup appeared, Chiswick United women's football team proudly jogged past, single file, wry smile and a nod of acknowledgement at their success that day. Errol looked pleasantly surprised and left me to enjoy the moment as I did. The working week went well. I'd been round, visited Becky at the barbecue and signed up for their loft conversion. As they signed up, I wrote what lawyers might call the back of a fag packet. It was a couple of pages, but I hadn't written contracts. I'd used Top Flights. And I sort of mimicked my memory of one of theirs too. But this was on trust. Things were going well. And the first thing I did when taking a deposit for that first loft conversion was to buy a Jag, an XJ120, I think it was. Old school. Now, you could take the boy out of Essex and all that. And this was like great Essex, but who would appreciate it in West End, South West London? They're all running around in their Porsche Boxsters and this and that. And anyway, that's what I did. I didn't have any money for tools, wood, nothing. I spent all the deposit on this Jag. But on the first day I started, after the scaffold went up and I could do lakeside friends in scaffolding, I'd get a much bigger payment. And that I would use to buy the materials. So with that, I arranged to meet up with Michelle. And as I entered the office to see what the new desk in the front window was all about, she was very attractive, well-spoken, blonde, bob, stunning figure, and greeted me on the other side of the desk holding her hand out to shake mine. "I'm Michelle. Darren, isn't it?" I nodded as I could stop myself from eyeing her up. "Take a seat. Tea, coffee, water, something stronger?" She was bantering with me, cheeky, feminine. And as she joked whilst making a cup for herself, "I'm good, thanks," was my initial reply. And I sat ready for my first mortgage deal. We looked at each other for a moment, then on to business in hand. I completed the forms, answering all the questions, and then came one from her: "Married, single, engaged, available to mingle?" She joked, with a little tone of the north of England filtering across her lips as she waited for my reply. Yeah, single, available to mingle," joking back. And she hadn't expected me to be so advanced, her banter, as her eyes popped. We're both properly and openly flirting. Replacing any thoughts of intentional frolic with the business of the day, Michelle looked up and stood and held out her hand to shake mine. "Well, it's been lovely meeting with you, Darren. I'll get all this off and I'll call you when I have a response. Have a lovely rest of your weekend, and same to you," I said. As I was driving back through the city of London along the A13 into South Ockenden and home, and although home and its surroundings are full of memories with my two brothers, it would always bring back the reality of our family's position. With a meeting with Michelle, a reality check, I was back to work on Monday with the additional spring in my step. I got out my tools in Brocklebank Road, and Becky continued to bring us tea, coffees and chit-chat during the day. I was on my first step of the ladder, it seemed. I was in business. First loft, as a loft specialist. I just stood there dreaming of the scenario. Leaving in Ericsson Close. Perhaps dating Michelle. Perhaps having a loft conversion business for my family to participate and flourish in someday. The scenario was tantalising and potentially too good to be true. Then park these thoughts in preference of getting to the site, getting on with work and concentrating on what I really had to do for the day, and that was just to earn some money and pay the way. With my brothers trying to think of a way to appeal their case and scramble all of the mishmash of evidence together somehow. Paul Harris, remote, disinterested. He'd done his job, whatever that job was. I was fortunate. My dreams were coming true, or some of them. The ones, I'd have swapped them for my brother's release, but I had the ones that most would want. I got the house, the flat, 109 Ericsson Close, Wandsworth. Michelle came over and we started dating. I set up a loft conversion business. It seems that dream, only a short time ago, had all changed into reality. I was out drinking, partying, taking my new girlfriend to the Atlantic Bar and Grill at Glasshouse Street in Soho, and that's where Michelle told me of her new advanced data set which could make her rich. Her rich, I thought, not us rich. Go on, tell me. Well, look, I've been introduced to a company that's got the data on every planning permission in the country. I'm going to email them and offer them financial services. Very good. I was I must say it then, I was like, oh, great. We celebrated the evening drinking magnums of Dom Perignon, my favourite champagne, and she kept telling me about how she was going to clean up, literally, by malmerging or writing letters to these homeowners that she knew were about to have loft conversions or extensions, remortgage their properties, draw down some equity, loans. Once in the door, she would have the opportunity for insurances, etc. So she was absolutely on fire. About a week later, she came around to see me, distraught. I can't believe it. It's all over. I said, what's wrong? What's up? As I sat down, I was consoling her. She calmed down a bit, said, look, under FSA or FCA rules, I can't write to people directly. So all the data I've got, it's useless. They'll let me loft conversions extend. Why don't I fucking write to them? So I tell you what, I said, you give me that data, I'll write to them. I'm a builder. I can write to people. I said, and if whilst I'm in the door, I get a whiff that they want something like a mortgage, remortgage, something, I said, I'll put you in it. That I can do. And that you can accept. She cheered up. She gave me the details of the company that gave her the data. And it was then that things started to change. Listen in to each episode as I engage you in my personal journey of how a boy growing up on a council estate in Essex would eventually own the most exclusive online private members club in the world.